Our president has a secret that he kept from you, me, and all 342 million Americans for months. A closed-doors government project that almost no one outside of the White House knew about until just recently, which included over 750 redacted federal files ordered by the president himself, and an extremely lucrative, albeit controversial, 330x investment opportunity buried inside of them. Now that's why I'm calling this giant stack of now destroyed federal papers the redacted Trump files. Now, surprisingly, I have yet to see anyone on Fox, on CNN, MSNBC, or even independent journalists like Tucker Carlson utter a single word about them. But mark my words, when the rest of the world finds out what the White House has been hiding inside these redacted files, which could happen any day now, according to a recent handwritten letter from the president that I am about to show you, I think it could rewrite Trump's entire legacy as a president. But just like everything related to Trump, it won't come without controversy. In a recent report on the matter, NPR called Trump's redacted files both disappointing and concerning. One congressman called it dangerous sabotage that could compromise safety and public trust. And he says it's led to one of the worst years for the security and safety of American civilians since the splitting of the atom in 1945. Because frankly, we don't have time for any kind of pontification. Regardless of how dangerous Trump's recent actions might seem on the surface, I believe it could go down as one of the pivotal presidential acts in history, and at the same time, make a select few Americans who make the right moves incredibly wealthy. And I am not the only one. A small circle of billionaire elites, including Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and an up-and-coming tech titan who Charlie Munger referred to as the new emperor of the world. Wow. They are all quickly moving their money to prepare as we speak. In fact, the president himself has put $300 million, over $250 million of his own family's money on the line. And if you know how Trump operates, you'll know that is an extremely bullish sign, because love him or hate him, if there's one thing Trump made a career out of, it's finding great deals that can make his family a great amount of money. And that's exactly how I describe this opportunity. It is an undeniable investment story that hasn't received a single second of mainstream attention yet, but could soon become the #1 story on Wall Street within the next few days. Because a few of the investments that I'm going to share with you haven't even IPO'd yet. But when they do, which could literally be any day now, thanks to the redacted Trump files I'm about to show you, they will be entering a brand new AI-adjacent market with the most explosive growth potential that I've ever seen. Now think about what it meant to get in early on Amazon when e-commerce was just starting to take off. In 1997, it was just an online bookstore. Early investors who held on captured 182,900% in gains. Or Netflix IPO'd in 2002 as a DVD by mail company. I'm sure many people remember that. And then rode the streaming boom for 112,700%. Or Tesla. In 2010, most of Wall Street laughed at the idea of an electric car company. Barron's called it more overvalued than its cars. Early investors who held on for the entirety of the EV boom captured over 26,000%. Now, the pattern is always the same. When a new market is born, a handful of companies go public right at the inflection point. And the earliest investors capture the bulk of the profits. And right now, I think history is about to repeat, potentially in a much bigger way, because buried inside Trump's redacted files is an executive mandate so urgent, so tied to America's national security, that it's about to force an entirely new market into existence almost overnight. A market that doesn't fully exist yet, one with over 33,000%, over 330 times growth potential over the next several years, according to my research, which I'll peel back the curtain on in just a moment. Now, the last time we saw explosive growth in a new market like this was 2023, when AI jumped onto the scene and minted over 500,000 new American millionaires in just 12 months. Now, I think we're at a similar inflection point with this new market, and it all hinges on these redacted Trump files. Now, you see, it all began just a few weeks after inauguration, when behind closed doors, Trump signed an executive order that laid the groundwork for this secret operation to commence officially. It was framed as a move to keep America #1 in the technologies of tomorrow. Unofficially, it was the beginning of the most urgent government operation since the Manhattan Project over 80 years ago. Now, that forced the government's notoriously slow approval process, one that took the better part of a decade, into a mandatory 18-month deadline. Then, in the weeks that followed, while the unusual political narratives dominated headlines, Trump and his team got to work from behind closed doors and began secretly redacting over 750 government files from one small and often overlooked corner of America's federal database. One that some analysts say could hold the fate of a $200 trillion market in the palm of its hand. Now, many of these files have been in place since the 1970s, originally written to protect the American people from serious harm. And what's the first thing that Trump does upon returning to the Oval Office? He takes a big, fat, black marker through them. The trillion-dollar question is, why? Why would Trump permanently delete these files? Why are Elizabeth Warren and other members of Congress so mad about it? How is it going to unleash a brand new AI-adjacent market with 330,000% growth potential that's also critical to our national security? And most importantly, what are the 5 steps that you can take today to join the small circle of billionaires who already know what's about to happen? So you can claim just a fraction of the wealth the redacted Trump files are set to unleash. That is why I'm here today, to show you the facts and let you decide for yourself. You see, I'm not here to talk about politics because as of right now, you either don't know about the redacted Trump files, or if you're one of the few who do know about them, you're probably thinking they're concerning, they're disappointing, or even dangerous. And you have no idea about the hidden wealth-building potential buried inside of them. It's not your fault, of course. The mainstream media paints every controversial thing Trump does in a bad light, and whenever he does something that is objectively good, they cover it up. So you have to work pretty hard to get the facts about anything related to Trump these days, but the reality is they won't be able to cover up the truth about his redacted files for much longer. Now, before we go any further, allow me to formally introduce myself. My name is Jeff Brown, and I've spent the past 25 years working on the bleeding edge of technology. As a former senior executive at Qualcomm, Juniper Networks, and NXP Semiconductors, 3 companies that today generate over $50 billion in combined annual revenue, I've seen firsthand how world-changing technologies are born before the rest of the world notices. And I've also backed hundreds of private companies as an angel investor, with returns reaching as high as 5,300%, 7,367%, and even 19,529%. My track record is why government agencies, including the Department of Commerce, NIST, and the Defense Intelligence Agency, have sought my input on how emerging technologies could reshape our economy and national security. But what I'm most proud of isn't my government work, it's what I've been able to do for everyday investors. In 2015, I published research on Bitcoin when most Americans had never heard of it. The price at that time was just $240. It has since touched $120,000. Anyone who followed my research and held on had a chance to turn $1,000 into more than $500,000. In February 2016, when AI was still considered science fiction, I recommended a little-known chip maker called NVIDIA. Shares have since climbed more than 23,000%, enough to turn $1,000 into $281,000. In 2017, I called AMD as my top stock pick. It became one of the defining AI plays of the decade, and early followers had the chance to turn $1,000 into $19,000. And in 2018, when the media was calling Elon Musk a fraud and Wall Street was predicting Tesla's collapse, I recommended it to my readers because I knew it was much more than a car company. Shares went on to climb as high as 2,150%, turning $1,000 into up to $22,500. But I am not here to brag about my past success, because honestly, it pales in comparison to what's at stake today. That despite what the mainstream media would have you believe, Trump didn't redact these files to cover anything up. And he didn't do it for any petty political reason. His quiet maneuver was an emergency response to a critical event that took place on November 30th, 2022. One that changed the course of America and even the world history forever. Now, like in 1776, when 56 fearless patriots stared death in the face and signed the Declaration of Independence, or 1969, when two computers at UCLA and Stanford connected for the first time and without realizing it, launched the internet era, because on November 30th, 2022, OpenAI, led by Sam Altman, launched ChatGPT to the public and officially kickstarted the AI arms race. Now, to give you an idea of just how historic of a time this truly was, ChatGPT hit 1 million users in just 5 days. The internet, on the other hand, arguably the greatest technological breakthrough in human history, didn't hit that many users until it was live for 5 years. In other words, the internet needed half a decade to do what ChatGPT did in a single week. Now, what started out as a fun little chatbot to help folks plan their date night quickly turned into the most explosive wealth driver we have ever seen, easily eclipsing what we saw during the tech boom almost 30 years ago and happening in a fraction of the time. A Fortune analysis found that the AI-driven market mania helped mint about 500,000 new U.S. millionaires in 2023 alone. Now think about that for a moment. That's like every person who lives within the city limits of Nashville becoming a millionaire in just the first year of the AI boom. Which is exactly why NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang recently said AI will create more millionaires in the next 5 years than the internet did in 2 decades. But this shouldn't be news to you. Unless you've been living under a rock, you already know how lucrative artificial intelligence is. And you're probably already heavily invested in AI stocks. What you might not know is the reason why AI grew so big so fast, and that's the key. Why that by late 2025, just 3 years later, there were already 498 AI unicorns, private AI companies valued at $1 billion or more, with a combined value of about $2.7 trillion, and over 1,300 AI startups valued above $100 million. Incredible. And why AI spending is on track to hit over $2.5 trillion per year and is fueling robust GDP growth. And why ARK Invest predicts AI will add $200 trillion to the economy by 2030, more than 6 times the current GDP of the United States. And the answer is simple, because AI isn't just a new technology, it is the technology. Just like there was a world before the internet and a world after the internet, there was a world before AI, and now we are living in the early stages of an unrecognizable world after AI. But don't just take my word for it. In the words of the world's richest man, Elon Musk, AI is the infinite money glitch. That's why leaders of adversaries of the United States make comments like this. Artificial intelligence is the future not only of Russia, but of all mankind. Whoever becomes the leader in this sphere will become the ruler of the world. That was Vladimir Putin. And while President Xi Jinping of China has gone all in to win the AI race, because according to Forbes, the nation that controls the future of AI is likely to amass unrivaled economic and military power. Forget the trillions AI could add to our economy through productivity gains alone. Imagine a world where robots could fight our wars for us instead of us having to risk young American lives on the battlefield. Imagine an army of infinite AI warriors who are 10x stronger, faster, and more fearless than the toughest Navy SEAL. Would anyone ever mess with a military like that? They would be almost untouchable, invincible even. But there is another darker side to the story. What if the enemy gets there first? What if Putin gets his hands on an infinite army of superhuman robots before the United States does? Now, I don't say this to scare you, but if we don't win the AI arms race, it would be the end of America as we know it. President Trump, he knows this. And that's why at the AI summit in DC, he publicly proclaimed the U.S. will do, and I quote, whatever it takes to lead the world in artificial intelligence, and why he and his administration have worked to create a 28-page AI action plan based on the premise that whoever has the largest ecosystem will set global AI standards and reap broad economic and military benefits, because AI is like the nuclear arms race times a gajillion. Elon Musk was actually wrong. This is actually much bigger than just an infinite money glitch. Whoever wins this arms race won't just have an infinite money glitch, they will have an infinite weapons glitch, an infinite power glitch, an infinite safety glitch, and an infinite freedom glitch, all in one. And that is why AI grew so fast. It's the sole reason Trump redacted these files without waiting for approval. And it's why, based on my research, a new 330 times growth boom is on the near horizon, similar to the growth boom that we saw in 2023 after ChatGPT launched. Because AI has a problem, a big problem, a problem that, if left unsolved, will make it near impossible for America to win the AI arms race. You see, AI consumes an astronomical amount of energy. How much energy? Well, a single ChatGPT query uses about 10 times more electricity than a Google search. At 1 billion daily queries, that's 340 megawatt hour daily, enough to charge 8 million phones. And ChatGPT is just one of hundreds of LLMs like Claude, Grok, and Gemini, many of which serve hundreds of millions of users monthly on their own. And that's not even factoring in AI image generators like Midjourney and DALL-E, which demand up to 5 to 100 times more computational resources per use than basic LLMs like ChatGPT. The appetite for computational resources is essentially limitless. And what's powering all of this? Well, new hyperscale data centers being built with capacities large enough to power 80,000 to 800,000 homes each. Now, when you ask ChatGPT or Anthropic's Claude a question, your question shoots across the internet to one of these massive AI data center factories. Now, gets processed by those semiconductors in milliseconds, and the answer flies back to your computer screen. It all happens so fast, it feels like it's almost instant. But there is a whole building working on it. The entire U.S. data center sector currently uses less than 15 gigawatts of power. But the pipeline of facilities now under construction could add 140 gigawatts more, roughly a 10x increase. To fund it all, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Meta are on track to spend over $650 billion on AI investments this year alone. According to Gartner, global data center electricity consumption will rise from 448 terawatt hours in 2025 to nearly 980 terawatt hours by 2030, a near doubling in just 5 years. Analysts are now comparing what's happening to the 19th century railroad build-out and early 20th century mass electrification, but it's larger, it's the largest infrastructure project in history, and it's a once-in-a-century reshaping of how the world uses energy. And it needs a solution right now. The question is, how do you power a technology that basically needs infinite energy to survive? As I'll show you in just a moment, the answer lies in these redacted Trump files. Now, look, I recognize the importance of fossil fuels just like President Trump, but the reality is Stanford scientists have calculated that in about 28 years, oil, which supplies 30.9% of our world's energy, will be gone. Then 8 years after that, natural gas, which supplies 23.2% of our world's energy, will vanish. And then 30 years later, in 2090, we will burn our last deposit of coal, which supplies 26.8% of our world's energy, which means we really have no time to waste to find a solution for the future of America's energy needs. Renewables like solar and wind are eternal, but they're at the mercy of the weather, and they don't generate even a fraction of the energy to replace oil and coal. And that leaves us with one option: nuclear energy. Nuclear is as reliable and dispatchable as fossil fuels, but with fuel supplies that, through special types of reactors and new technologies that scientists are discovering right now, could last forever. It is the only energy source that matches renewables on longevity while delivering power on demand, rain or shine, night or day, and it is extremely efficient. Now, one uranium fuel pellet the size of just a fingertip equals 1 ton of coal, 149 gallons of oil, or 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas. A single reactor replaces 3 million solar panels, 412 wind turbines, and a golf ball of uranium contains enough energy to power one person's entire lifetime. Elizabeth Warren and her political friends say this is a major problem, but what do the facts say? All nuclear waste ever produced in the U.S. history would fit inside your local Walmart. That's why Nobel physicist Carlo Rubbia says nuclear energy is as close to perfect as physics allows, and why the founder of OpenAI, Sam Altman, recently said, "Power is our biggest limitation. China's grid crushes us. We need nuclear yesterday to fuel AI and close the electron gap." But you're probably thinking to yourself, if it is so great, why doesn't nuclear energy power everything in America already? And my answer to that is exactly. Nuclear power has always sat at the top of the energy food chain, but one small accident 40 years ago robbed us of harnessing its true limitless power. And in March 1979, just outside of Middletown, Pennsylvania, at the now infamous nuclear power station called 3 Mile Island, a Unit 2 reactor partially melted down, causing the most serious accident in U.S. commercial nuclear power plant operating history. It triggered a nationwide panic, and President Jimmy Carter's administration got to work regulating nuclear power like it was the devil. Now, if you ask most people, they'd probably tell you nuclear regulations were justified, because the mainstream media wants you to believe nuclear power is this big, bad, scary thing that could destroy everything if we're not careful. But do you want to hear the truth? Since the 3 Mile Island accident occurred, multiple government agencies have monitored the area, collected thousands of environmental samples of air, of water, milk, vegetation, soil, and foodstuffs, and they determined that very low levels could be attributed to the accident, and that the radioactive release had zero effect on the physical health of the surrounding environment. Zero. Now, on top of that, the 3 Mile Island accident caused no injuries to humans, and more than a dozen studies since 1981 have found zero direct health effects to those who were living next to the plant, meaning that meltdown and the industry murdering regulations it led to were only one giant false narrative peddled by people who would rather line their pockets with oil money than give America access to the greatest source of clean energy to ever exist. They put the fault on the meltdown on nuclear energy when in reality it was 100% human error that could have easily been prevented. Now, that's like someone lighting a match at a gas station, throwing the match on gasoline, blowing it up, and going on live television 5 minutes later and then blaming gasoline for the explosion. It is absurd. It is ridiculous. And that's why, behind closed doors, Trump redacted over 750 pages of these ridiculous nuclear regulation files. Now, you can see some of the rules and regulations that Trump and his team crossed out here. Groundwater rules loosened, trigger for accident investigation raised, environmental protections. Most of it is pointless stuff in the name of protecting America from an imaginary boogeyman. Now, of course, the mainstream media cried about it. Edwin Lyman, the director of nuclear power safety at the Union of Concerned Scientists, accused Trump of, and I quote, taking a wrecking ball to the system of nuclear safety and security regulation oversight that has kept the U.S. from having another 3 Mile Island accident. But while America waged a war on nuclear energy for no good reason, China wasted no time at all building nuclear infrastructure to win the AI arms race. In the past decade, China has brought 37 nuclear power plants online. And the United States, well, it added just 2. It makes me angry just thinking about it. All the time that we've wasted, all of the unnecessary stress that we've put ourselves under, the increased electricity prices. I mean, the lead that we basically handed to China on a silver platter, all thanks to a mountain of pointless regulations pushed by corrupt politicians paid off by their donors. And according to one study by MIT, America is now up to 15 years behind China when it comes to nuclear energy. And that means China could pause their entire nuclear operation right now, and we wouldn't reach their level of nuclear energy output until 2041. Unbelievable. All of this is to say, if America wants to win the AI race, we must close that nuclear power gap fast. Deloitte estimates that data center energy demand will surge 30-fold in just 5 years. And one former OpenAI researcher believes the AI boom will require 100 gigawatts of constant electricity. Now that's roughly the power draw of 100 US cities running at full tilt. Now the problem is traditional nuclear power plants aren't going to cut it. The average time to get a nuclear power plant online in America is around 8.5 years. So by the time we build enough plants to power the 100 gigawatt AI boom, China and Russia will undoubtedly have already won the race. And that is why President Trump has turned his attention to a new type of nuclear energy. In addition to his redacted nuclear regulation files, Trump is also spearheading a new nuclear program to fast-track construction of a new type of nuclear reactor designed by private firms, and they are called small modular reactors, SMRs. Now, these reactors are 14 times smaller than a traditional nuclear power plant. Some will sit on as little as 5.3 acres, almost nothing, roughly the size of a single city block. Now compare that to some of America's older nuclear sites that sprawl across 12,000 acres, nearly the size of Manhattan. But here's what makes SMRs truly revolutionary. Traditional nuclear power plants require pouring close to 1 million cubic meters of specialized concrete. Now that's roughly 1/3 of the concrete used to build the Hoover Dam. Now, they're massive, one-of-a-kind construction projects that can take a decade or more to complete. SMRs, completely different. Every component is manufactured and tested off-site and then shipped to the location and assembled. It's more like snapping together building blocks than breaking ground on a skyscraper. That's why they're called modular. The result, construction timelines condensed into months instead of years, and the safety profile is unlike anything we've seen before. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission found that in an emergency scenario, the impact zone of an SMR likely wouldn't even reach the facility's fence line. Now compare that to the 50-mile evacuation radius required for a traditional reactor, and you have yourself a perfect solution for America's AI energy crisis. The SMRs are like portable boxes of infinite energy that can be deployed across America at scale, pretty much anywhere. Now, the only thing holding this back has been regulations, and Trump just took a giant sledgehammer to it. In Executive Order 14301, he directed that advanced reactors be deployed as soon as possible, stripping away decades of red tape that had strangled the industry. Allison McFarlane, a professor who served as chairman of the NRC under President Barack Obama, said, "This is not normal, and this is not okay, and this is not going to lead to success. This is how to have an accident." But what do the experts who are actually working on this stuff say? Isaiah Taylor, the founder and CEO of Valor Atomics, a small nuclear startup, said, "This is exactly what we need to do. We need to make nuclear great again." And that is exactly what Trump is doing. The Department of Energy immediately launched its reactor pilot program, selecting 11 projects across 10 companies to get up and running as fast as possible. And one of those 10 companies, just one, is currently trading publicly. It's a company called Oklo that I actually recommended to my readers early on. Investors who bought Oklo at its IPO and held through the DOE announcement had the chance to pocket gains of 1,960% in just over a year. Now, that's the kind of return that takes roughly 36 years to achieve in an index fund, compressed into barely over a year. A $10,000 investment could have grown to over $200,000. But here's the thing. Oklo isn't the only company in that program. With this huge push from the government to put small modular reactors across America, I believe a lot more private nuclear companies are about to go public to raise capital. They have to. They must. We don't have another option, because in order to hit the 100 gigawatt target for the AI boom, we could need over 1,000 of these small modular reactors across the country. And that's a potential 33,000% or 330 times growth explosion from where we are today. And we need to get there as soon as possible. Otherwise, we are in trouble. And that's why I believe what happens next is obvious. We're about to witness a 330x growth boom in the alternative nuclear energy market. But don't just take my word for it. Follow the money. Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI and the godfather of AI himself, just recently inked a new deal with the Defense Department to deploy its AI models on classified cloud networks. And he's invested $375 million of his own money in a nuclear fusion startup called Helion Energy. And he was one of the earliest investors in Oklo, the former chairman, and currently has a 4.8% ownership stake. The publicly traded nuclear company worth $10 billion that I just mentioned, well, Peter Thiel, billionaire and Elon's former co-founder of PayPal, made a $2 million investment into another alternative nuclear energy startup. The same with Bill Gates. He's reportedly put more than $4 billion into nuclear energy investments. Warren Buffett, the greatest investor of our generation, even he's getting in on the action alongside Bill Gates. Jeff Bezos, the world's third richest man, between his own capital and Amazon, Bezos has plowed over $1 billion into companies developing nuclear energy. And there are reports saying that Jensen Huang, CEO and founder of NVIDIA, the richest company in the world, sitting at a $4 trillion+ market cap, he and NVIDIA have invested in 2 different nuclear startups because, in his own words, energy is the bottleneck. And I think in the next 6-7 years, you're going to see a whole bunch of small nuclear reactors. But it's not just tech billionaires who are going all in on investing in nuclear energy. Goldman Sachs recently analyzed 697 hedge funds. Now, we're talking about some of the largest pools of capital on earth. That list includes BlackRock, the $14 trillion asset management giant that Charlie Munger once famously called the new emperor of the world. And what did Goldman's data show? Hedge funds are piling into the nuclear sector. Still not convinced? Even President Trump himself is moving his chips to the center of the table. In December of 2025, President Trump announced the intention to merge his publicly traded company, Trump Media, with an alternative nuclear energy company called TAE Technologies. The move was valued at more than $6 billion. And as part of that deal, Trump Media planned to provide up to $300 million in cash to support the fusion company's technology development. because the billionaires of the world all see the same writing on the wall, America's 330,000% nuclear growth boom is just days away. And let me show you why. As we all know, Trump is a polarizing guy. He has lots of friends and lots of enemies. But there's one enemy in particular who he singled out more than anyone in his second term, the old United States Federal Reserve Chair, Jerome Powell. Now, in a handwritten letter to Jerome Powell, Trump said, "You are, as usual, too late. You have cost the USA a fortune and continue to do so. You should lower the interest rates by a lot. Hundreds of billions of dollars being lost. No inflation." So basically, Powell refused to lower the federal funds rate, the key interest rate that banks charge each other for overnight loans. And because this tiny data point sits at the very heart of the $500 trillion global financial system, it directly controls borrowing costs for everything from mortgages and car loans to industrial and infrastructure projects. Now again, Trump understands this rate is the main power switch for the entire U.S. economy, but few industries are more sensitive to it than nuclear energy, and that is because building reactors, securing uranium supply, and expanding SMR infrastructure requires enormous amounts of financing. So when rates get lowered, it's like taking the brakes off the entire sector. Projects that look too expensive suddenly to become viable, this gives companies far more firepower to accelerate development and ramp up production at a much faster pace. In other words, lower rates will trigger a massive wave of Wall Street money flowing directly into this sector. And obviously, since Trump personally has $300 million of his own money at stake, you can bet he's going to do everything in his power to make it happen. And that's why, after months of growing tension, on May 15, Trump replaced Powell with a new Fed chair named Kevin Warsh. As Barron's put it, Trump wants interest rates to come down by a lot quickly. He will get that and probably much more under Kevin Warsh. And here's why that's a big deal right now. The next FOMC meeting is just days away. And based on the words straight out of the president's mouth, Kevin Warsh will kickstart a new rate cut cycle. That could bring interest rates to a level we haven't seen since the renewable energy growth boom in 2021. But don't just take my word for it. The last time this happened, you could have made a fortune in renewable energy stocks. A few years ago, in response to the pandemic economic shutdown, interest rates were cut to historic lows. And just like Trump is doing now with his nuclear energy executive orders, in April of 2021, President Biden added fuel to the fire with an executive order to address climate change and spend $2 trillion on fast-tracking America's clean energy push, which sent alternative clean energy stocks exploding higher. Uranium Energy Corp went up 1,800%, and Phase Energy skyrocketed 1,100%. First Solar launched 500%. Energy Fuels shot up 1,200%, and Plug Power climbed 1,500% in under a year. Now, to give you an idea, if someone put $10,000 into each of those 5 alternative energy stocks, they could have walked away with over $500,000 in profits in just a couple years. Now, that's what can happen when the Fed and the White House align, and based on all the proof that I've laid out for you today, I think the aftermath of these redacted Trump files could produce even bigger gains. And it's also why I'm recommending that you take 5 immediate steps today to get in early on this 330x nuclear growth boom that's already underway. So let's get right into it. Step 1, buy shares of my top 3 alternative nuclear energy companies when they go public. Like I mentioned earlier, nuclear is the only energy source capable of powering the AI revolution. But the problem is, old nuclear power plants are too big, too costly, and take way too long to build. That is exactly why the smartest money in the world is racing to fund a new generation of nuclear technology, ones that are faster, smaller, and built for the AI age. And it's why I just wrote a special report called 3 IPOs for America's Nuclear Energy Boom. And inside this report, I've identified 3 private companies positioned at the center of this energy revolution, ones I believe stand to benefit the most from Trump's executive orders and redacted regulations. The first is the company that cracked the code on cheap, abundant power right now. While the big energy companies were still debating, this company figured out how to turn the oil industry's wasted gas into ultra-low-cost fuel for AI data centers at 30 to 50% cheaper than anyone else. They're already building the first site of OpenAI's $500 billion Stargate project, and they may be headed for a public market debut as soon as 2026. The second is Bill Gates' secret nuclear weapon. Backed by NVIDIA and a $2 billion commitment from the US government, this company has cracked the code on a new generation of nuclear reactor, one that runs on nuclear waste that's already been sitting in the ground for decades. And on top of that, they're smaller, safer, and way faster to build than traditional reactors. With the first project already well along with construction in Wyoming. The third is the most exciting of all. This MIT spinout is building what scientists have chased for 70 years, a fusion reactor that replicates the power of the sun. Now, Google has already signed a deal to buy its power. An Italian energy giant just committed $1 billion to it, and their prototype is already more than 65% complete. Now, I know what you're thinking. These are private companies. How do I know this is a real opportunity? And that's a fair question. So let me show you what happens to investors when a nuclear energy company goes public at the right moment, when the AI power crisis started making headlines. A little-known energy company called Vistra became the #1 performing stock in the entire S&P 500 in 2024. It beat NVIDIA. It beat every tech stock on the market. Investors who were positioned early saw gains of 258% in a single year. And then came the pure-play nuclear startups. Oklo, I mentioned earlier, the small modular reactor company that went public in 2024. It surged almost 2,000% the following year. This was the market waking up to a simple truth. AI runs on power, and the world doesn't have enough of it. The 3 companies that I've just described are private versions of that same story. But earlier, backed by Bill Gates, NVIDIA, Google, and most importantly, the US government, companies developing reactors built for the energy demands of the AI revolution and sitting on the edge of going public. Now, I have put everything, the names, the details, and exactly how to position yourself inside my special report called 3 IPOs for America's Nuclear Energy Boom. And when you say yes to the opportunity, I'll present you in just a moment. I will give you access to this report. But before I tell you how to claim this report, let me cover the second step that I recommend. Step number 2, invest in the #1 alternative nuclear energy supplier right now. This is an even more explosive opportunity to benefit from the aftermath of Trump's redacted files. Yes, thanks to Trump eliminating 750 pages of red tape and regulations, the companies building the next generation of advanced nuclear reactors could deliver generational gains to early investors. And yes, I've just shown you 3 private companies positioned right at the center of that build-out, ones that could make the recent Oklo and Vistra runs look modest by comparison. But I believe the single biggest gain in this entire revolution won't come from the companies building the reactors, at least not at first. It will come from the companies supplying what every single one of those reactors needs to run. You see, to reach the 100 gigawatts of always-on power that researchers say we need to win the AI arms race, we could need as many as 1,000 of these advanced nuclear reactors deployed across America. Right now, we just have 3. That's a potential 33,000% or 330 times growth explosion in a single industry driven entirely by the race to beat China and Russia to AI supremacy. But here's the thing about 1,000 nuclear reactors. They all need fuel, and not just any fuel. The next generation of nuclear power runs on a completely different kind of fuel. The reactors powering America today run on uranium enriched to about 5%. But the next generation of advanced nuclear reactors, the smaller, faster, cheaper ones being built right now, require something far more powerful. It's called HALEU, high-assay, low-enriched uranium. I just call it AI fuel, because without it, the entire advanced nuclear build-out stops cold. And right now, our government is absolutely desperate for it. The Department of Energy has warned in writing that without a domestic supply of AI fuel, advanced nuclear deployment in America and everything that depends on it could be in jeopardy. Now, the problem is Russia is currently the only commercial supplier of AI fuel at scale. And with China and Russia openly working together to win the AI arms race, America has banned Russian imports entirely, which means we need a domestic supply fast. Washington is pulling every lever it has to make that happen, and one little-known company is quietly positioned to become the backbone of America's AI fuel supply chain. Now, this company has been mining uranium for more than 60 years. It is a proven operator, sitting on 457 million pounds of uranium reserves worth an estimated $28.7 billion. Now, to put that in perspective, a single uranium pellet the size of a sugar cube produces as much energy as a metric ton of coal. This company controls enough uranium to reach AI's defining moment 544 times over. And critically, not a single pound of those reserves is in Russia. 2/3, they sit right here in North America. But the reserves are only part of the story, because this company just entered a joint venture that gives it access to something no other uranium company in the world has: a proprietary laser enrichment process that can convert raw uranium directly into AI fuel. The facilities are already being built in Kentucky and North Carolina, and the breakthrough doesn't stop there. This same process can take old, spent nuclear fuel, waste that's been sitting in the ground for decades, and convert it into fresh AI fuel. It's solving the nuclear waste problem and creating a new revenue stream at the same time. The joint venture has already been awarded a contract under the Department of Energy's low-enriched uranium program. Now, given the sheer volume of AI fuel that 1,000 advanced nuclear reactors will require, that contract could end up being one of the most valuable pieces of paper in America. Now, we've seen this before. Every time a new energy paradigm arrives, the company that controls the critical input becomes a big winner. When fracking unlocked America's shale gas reserves, Cheniere Energy positioned itself as the leading producer of liquefied natural gas. Investors who got in early enough could have pocketed gains of nearly 66,000%. That's enough to turn $1,000 into $660,000. When solar became the cheapest new energy on Earth, Enphase controlled the critical component, the microinverter. Now, it handed investors potential gains of more than 52,000%, enough to turn $1,000 into over $520,000. And if you zoom out and look at AI itself, NVIDIA didn't soar because it was an AI company. It soared because AI can't exist without GPUs. NVIDIA controlled the bottleneck. That's what I recognized very early, and it's why investors who followed my recommendation could have walked away with gains of 28,000%. The pattern is always the same. Find the critical input, get there before the crowd, and right now, AI fuel is that input. A 330x growth explosion in advanced nuclear reactors means an equal explosion in demand for the fuel that powers them. And there is one company uniquely positioned to supply it. Now, I put everything, the name, the ticker, and exactly how to position yourself inside a special report. It's called The Keystone of Nuclear, the company behind the $100 trillion AI fuel. And inside, you'll discover the full story on this company, why I believe it could be one of the most important investments of the next decade, and exactly how to get in before the next wave of reactor contracts starts rolling in. Now, in just a moment, I'll show you how to claim it, but first, I want to tell you about the third step I recommend that you take. Step 3, invest in the bridge fuel powering the AI revolution right now. Now, before I tell you how to get access to everything that I've just described, I want to make sure that you don't miss another opportunity that's sitting right in front of us. You see, advanced nuclear is almost certainly the future of AI power, but we're still in this transition period. And right now, today, the world's biggest AI data centers can't wait for nuclear reactors to come online. So they're turning to natural gas. It is cheap, it is abundant, and unlike nuclear or renewables, it can be up and running in months instead of decades. Now, Elon Musk, he didn't wait for a grid upgrade or a new power plant to come online. He went out and bought natural gas turbines for his Colossus data center outside of Memphis, and has since expanded to 420 megawatts of on-site natural gas power generation, enough to power an entire mid-sized city. Now, OpenAI's first Stargate data center in Abilene, Texas, is being powered by a brand new 360 megawatt off-grid natural gas plant, and Goldman Sachs says natural gas will supply 60% of all energy needs created by AI data centers. This is the bridge fuel powering the AI revolution while the world builds out its nuclear infrastructure. And I've identified 2 companies that are perfectly positioned to profit from it. The first just inked one of the most transformational deals in American energy history. And when it closes, this company will become the largest power generator in the United States and gain immediate control over the key generation assets in Texas and California, 2 of the fastest growing AI infrastructure markets in the country. Now, management projects the deal will add 20% to profitability in 2026 alone. Now, I've rarely seen an acquisition this immediately accretive in any industry, and here's the part that makes this a potentially once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for investors. I believe Wall Street has not yet priced this deal into their models, which means the upside has not been captured yet. The second company is one most investors have never heard of, even though it holds 17,000 patents and sits at the cutting edge of next-generation energy systems. It is one of the world's top producers of natural gas turbines, the kind being deployed right now across AI data center projects nationwide. In fact, this company supplied half the turbines for the Stargate natural gas plant. Now, last year, they built around 40 of these large-scale turbines, but 2026, they're ramping up production to 70 to 80 units annually, nearly doubling output to meet the exploding demand. Now, I've put the names, ticker symbols, and full investment case for both companies inside a report called 2 Natural Gas Stocks for the AI Energy Boom, and I'll show you how to claim this report in just a minute. But first, we still have one more step to cover, and this might be the most important of them all. Step 4, stay in touch with me to get constant updates during this 330x nuclear growth boom. Like I showed you here today, thanks to Trump's redacted files, America's nuclear energy guardrails are finally coming off for the first time in over 50 years. And for folks like you, if you follow the steps that I described here today, I believe in the next few months could also be the most profitable time of your life. The combination of historically low interest rates and Trump's urgent efforts to win the AI arms race at any cost is an explosive combination that I believe will trigger another energy stock boom, similar to what we saw just a few years ago when investors had a chance to turn a small stake of just $5,000 into $500,000 in a few short years. Now, I could just give you all these special reports and wish you good luck, and I'm sure you would do very well. But this is only the beginning of the alternative nuclear energy growth boom, and there will be many other explosive opportunities in the coming months and years. That's why I'd like to stay in touch and guide you every step of the way during this wealth window. The best way for you to stay in the know about all these opportunities is to join a group of like-minded folks like you who follow my work in a research project that I call the Near Future Report. It is completely risk-free. And in the Near Future Report, I uncover the little-known technologies that are on the verge of mass adoption before they hit the headlines. As you likely know, by the time the mainstream media catches on, the big money has already been made. That's why it's my aim to clue my members in on the latest trends early and give them a chance to see the benefits in their bank accounts, just like I did with Bitcoin, with Tesla, with Nvidia, and many, many other stocks before they came onto everyone's radar. For example, if you held on past their original recommendations and sold at their peak, you could have pocketed gains as high as 837% on Arista Networks, 813% on Palo Alto Networks, and 485% on Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. And those are just a small handful of my market-beating winners from the past few years. And today, you can make sure you don't miss out on any of my future stock recommendations by trying out the Near Future Report completely risk-free. As soon as you do, I'll send you all 3 special reports that I mentioned, 3 IPOs for America's nuclear energy boom, the keystone of nuclear, the company behind the $100 trillion AI fuel, and 2 natural gas stocks for the AI energy boom. Absolutely free. Now, typically, a 1-year membership to the Near Future Report is priced at $499, but today, you won't pay anywhere near that. You see, I'm trying to help as many regular Americans take advantage of the new energy revolution Trump's redacted files are set to unleash, so I don't want the price to be an issue. And that's why I negotiated a special deal with my publisher. Today, you can take a risk-free test drive for one single payment of $179. Just click the big Join Now button below to start your membership right now for just $179, and you'll get access to my research for the next 12 months. Now remember, you aren't taking on any risk when you try the Near Future Report. I'm giving you 30 days to test out the service, and if at any point during those 30 days you decide this isn't the best tech and growth investing research you've ever seen, or for any reason at all, you can simply call our member services team and cancel your membership. And you'll receive a full refund on your order. No questions, no hassles, and I'll even let you keep everything that you received as a member. That's right. You can keep all the issues, you can keep all of these special reports, 3 IPOs for America's nuclear energy boom, the keystone of nuclear, the company behind the $100 trillion AI fuel, 2 natural gas stocks for the AI energy boom. That's 6 stock recommendations in total with all my research and analysis, and you can keep everything just for trying it out. This means that there's really no risk to you at all for this offer. So to get started, just simply click on the button below, and as soon as you do, you'll be taken to another page where you can review everything one last time. And keep in mind, when you join the Near Future Report, you are joining thousands of Americans who are already happy to follow my research. People like Tim H., who says, Jeff, I've been investing and working in the technology industry since 1985. Your insight and experience is easily the best I have ever read, and I am in my first year with you and have made good money with your recommendations. Thank you. Ruan says, I've been a loyal subscriber for some time now and greatly admire and appreciate the work you do to bring us readers such quality recommendations. Your newsletters are well worth their weight in gold. Leonard says, just wanted you all to know that this is the most trustworthy news and picks I ever came across, hands down. My portfolio is nothing now but Jeff's picks, and I'm very pleased with how they are performing. The best newsletter published, period. Keep up the great work. You could be the next success story, so please click on that button to get started. And that brings me to the 5th and final step. Step number 5, take this small leap of faith today for the shot at generational wealth tomorrow. I truly believe that Trump's redacted files are about to unleash a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in nuclear energy, but as with all investments, timing is everything. My most profitable investments all have one thing in common. I took action before it was the cool thing to do. Like when I picked Bitcoin in 2015 at just $240, Do you think that was a popular investment back then? I can't tell you how many people wrote back calling me the worst names that you could think of, idiot, moron, or stupid. But anyone who bought Bitcoin when I recommended it and held on until its peak in 2025 could have turned a single $1,000 investment into over $500,000. I wonder how they feel today. Or how about in 2016 when I recommended NVIDIA? A lot of people don't realize this, but NVIDIA used to be a video game technology stock. That's what they were known for. But as someone with an ear to the ground in the technology space, I saw the real story before almost everyone else. NVIDIA was actually an AI company. And anyone who paid attention and held on until the top could have pocketed a 28,000% gain since then, turning $1,000 into over $281,000. Or how about Tesla? In the winter of 2018, I wrote Tesla is much more than a flashy electric vehicle company. In fact, when you look past the headlines, you'll see it's really a software and artificial intelligence company with a huge lead on the self-driving trend. Remember, this was years before most people even heard of AI. But thanks to my experience in the tech world, I could see Musk's real master plan, and anyone who paid attention to my recommendation and held on could have pocketed gains of up to 2,263%. I also picked semiconductor manufacturer AMD and gave my readers the chance at gains of over 2,100%. And just a few months ago, I set out on an investigation, much like the one that you're watching right now. I traveled to Mountain Pass, California, and I uncovered the one American company with a practical monopoly on mining the key metals essentially for the robotics revolution right here at home. That company, MP Materials, immediately soared 182% in just 4 months, outperforming the wider market by more than 20 times. That's what can happen when you're an early investor in a new technology growth boom. And I think Trump's redacted files just handed us the next generational growth boom on a silver platter. The barrels of gasoline are stacked sky high, and the match is about to be lit when the Fed cuts interest rates again and ignites America's 330x nuclear growth boom. If you missed out on the AI boom, this could be the second chance that you've been waiting for to go after generational wealth for you and your family. This decision could be your defining legacy. Your kids and grandkids could talk about it for years to come. And that is why I want to make sure you take me up on this special offer today and claim your risk-free membership to the Near Future Report. Remember, you have 30 whole days to make sure that it's right for you, so you have nothing to lose. Just click the button to get started right now, and when you do, you'll receive all of my free reports to your inbox within moments of signing up. Just to recap, you'll receive 3 IPOs for America's nuclear energy boom. These are the 3 small nuclear reactor-linked companies that I believe could IPO next. If they follow Oklo's explosive 1,960% growth, early birds could soon be smiling from ear to ear. The keystone of nuclear, the company behind the $100 trillion AI fuel, this company could become the #1 supplier of the fuel every small nuclear reactor will need, and the stock could soar as suppliers for advanced reactors are named. 2 natural gas stocks for the AI energy boom. One of these companies is set to run key generators in Texas and California and become the biggest power producer in the entire country. Yet, in my eyes, Wall Street has yet to catch on. The other company makes the turbines that AI data centers are snapping up, and its output is set to explode in 2027. That is 6 recommendations in total, and any one of which could end up as the next NVIDIA during this 330,000% nuclear growth boom. What's more, you'll receive your addition to the Near Future Report every month. I will send you my latest research into the world's most disruptive technologies before they hit the headlines, whether it's AI, robotics, biotech, energy, or aerospace technology, it doesn't matter. If it has the potential to change the world and your wealth, you are going to hear about it from me first. You'll also get instant access to our full model portfolio. It includes every active recommendation, complete with buy-up-to prices, updates, and sell alerts, so you're never left wondering what to do next. It is a simple, clear roadmap to navigate the future's biggest profit trends. Plus, you'll receive urgent updates and flash alerts the moment that something changes. If breaking news affects one of our positions or opens the door to a new opportunity, I will let you know immediately. All of this is included with your risk-free membership to the Near Future Report. Just please keep in mind, all investing does carry risk, and past performance is no guarantee for future returns, so you should never invest more than you'd be comfortable losing. So please click the button below on the screen to secure your membership, and remember, there is no time to waste here. The first small nuclear reactors are set to come online just weeks from now, thanks to Trump's executive orders. And with the Fed gearing up to cut rates like we haven't seen since 2020, watch out. It will be a building frenzy unlike anything that we've seen before as America rushes to hit our 1,000 small reactor target so we can power the artificial intelligence boom and beat China and Russia in the AI arms race. The future of America depends on the success of the handful of companies in these reports. And that's why I believe if you choose to ride their coattails with me, you and your family will be handsomely rewarded. So please click the button below to lock in your membership to the Near Future Report and find out the name and ticker symbols of the companies that could let you capitalize on this first of its kind opportunity. I'm Jeff Brown. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. And remember, we have so much to look forward to.